Welcome back. Just in case you joined us, this is News Check. On the second hour, we are looking at the Royal Dutch visit, and earlier on we had the joint presser by President William Ruto and King Alexander. They are talking about what they have agreed and put pen to paper. We've actually seen them being signed, at least 3 memorandum of understanding and letters of intent. On the second hour, we are looking at that. My name is Ben Troy Njue, and now we have Brian Moraru as our sign language interpreter. Allow me very quickly to rope in my panel of experts, beginning from my immediate left. We have Ambassador Boaz Mbaya. Karibu sana, Ambassador.
Asante.
And Ambassador will tell us all about that because he was the first secretary to set up the Netherlands mission in 1985. That is in Netherlands. You tell us, he knows a lot about the Dutch and knows a lot about Netherlands as well. And just next to him, we have my good friend and a regular here, Sami Meli, who is a leadership and governance expert. Karibu sana, Bwana Meli.
Asante sana, Ventroy.
The last time I saw you was during the AU chairmanship.
Yes, the elections of the AU chairman.
Yes. Yeah. You did a good job, you guys.
Thank you. We spent a whole day here.
Yes. Now, talking about, because of the interest of time, beginning with you, Ambassador, you were the first secretary to establish the mission in Netherlands. And we have just seen, and you've just heard the president and the king talk about the partnership that they have agreed. I would like you to run us through that.
Well, I wouldn't want to go into the pros and cons of establishing a mission because that the details would be too heavy. But just to say that a decision was taken in 1985 to establish a mission in The Hague, because we used to cover it, I think, from Germany at that time. And I was serving in Kigali as a second secretary, but was posted to Netherlands to establish that mission. So I established the mission, the current embassy in the Netherlands, Kenyan embassy in the Netherlands. Now, there are a number of things that you do when establishing a mission. One, how important is that country? What significance does it have to Kenya in terms of its relations, cooperation, and so forth? And are we friendly generally? Because you open a mission in a friendly country. So that is one. Number two, the level of cooperation between Kenya and Netherlands has always been very high. And I was listening to the president's statement. It captures the whole essence of what we are with the Netherlands. What I would like to say with particular regard to the visit today is that we have 2 heads of state who are different but the same. Different because our president is executive president. He's head of state as well as head of government. The King of Netherlands is only a ceremonial head of state. So he's traveling with a host of ministers, I want to believe, who will be doing business on behalf of the Dutch government.
It's a good thing you've brought about that, because also we find ourselves hosting kings, we've hosted prime ministers, and we've hosted presidents. How does it differ?
The difference is this. For the King of Netherlands, like it was with the King Charles, they are basically ceremonial occasions. But they'll travel with their functional ministers who act on behalf of their governments, so that any agreements, any discussions, bilateral discussions, would be carried out. And there is no free lunch in diplomacy. So whenever a king travels or a queen travels, they carry the burden of the government because they are head of state of that country. Our president carries both the government as well as the state. So he combines both roles. And that is a matter of constitutional functions.
Allow me now to rope in Meli, and allow me to begin where we were having so many emails and actually the embassy did acknowledge that they had received so many emails from a section of Kenyans who did not want this visit to happen. And why I bring up this is because if you've listened keenly to the to King William. He said he's open to discuss and is actually having a closed-door session with a number of youths in regards to matters democracy, rule of law, and governance in the country.
You know, we are a young democracy, and being a young democracy, the Netherlands knows how to handle such issues, having come from where there were revolutions in the past when Netherlands was establishing itself. So remember, also the Netherlands or the Dutch have a word that God made the world, but the Dutch made Holland. So there is a significant importance in the presence of the king in this country, touching on trade, tourism, and other bilateral ties that Kenya has with Holland or the Netherlands. Remember, the youth did their communication, but you know, in diplomacy, the invitee decides whether to come or not. We don't decide for them. So he saw it better to come because perhaps the invitation carried heavier relations. Remember, there could be diplomatic agreements that perhaps had expired and needed renewals. Netherlands produces flowers the way we do. Remember, they are the biggest consumers of our avocado. And whatever they are coming to do, perhaps is more beneficial to the two countries, to the extent that you don't hear those other noises. And remember, he will have a session with the youth. Therefore, perhaps he said, let me go on a charm offensive, meet this youth, rather than just read the emails and listen to them, their concerns. Because in as much as somebody tells you don't come, you sometimes decide to come and hear from them face to face. And perhaps in that closed door session, there'll be those youth to express their opinions, and perhaps the king will be able to advise the government on governance and the diplomatic issues that perhaps the two countries have. But majorly, Kenya being perhaps I can call it an underdog, this visit is more beneficial to us than to the Netherlands. Remember, it's a country that leads in technology, it leads in agriculture, it even beats us in tourism. And you saw our president making efforts to ask the king perhaps to invite some of the Dutch to visit this country, because we solely depend on foreign tourists. Most of the Kenyans here, local tourism is lesser of lesser income generation than when the foreign tourists come. And therefore, remember, they don't come using the Kenyan shilling, they come with the dollar perhaps. And the exchange rates, you see, is beneficial to us. So sometimes when we put our emotions ahead and forget about the economic importance, because we are talking about unemployment, but it doesn't work when we scare away tourists. It doesn't work when we scare away our diplomats or our friends who are business friends. So imagine if you are a businessman and you scare away your supplier. You see, at the end of the day, you are the one at a loss. So the presence of the king and the queen in this country is beneficial to us. Perhaps there will be even some agreements on employment opportunities in the Netherlands. Remember, it's a population that is also growing negatively. As we grow positively, their population is growing negative. You know, in some of these European countries, the couples sometimes decide just to marry and not have children. You see, and for us, we are marrying and having children. To an extent, even some religion dictates the number of children you should have. So, or the extent in which you procreate. So, their visit is beneficial to us. We should welcome them, show them the hospitality that has always been there with the Kenyans. Remember, even in social media, you have seen the guests who have visited our country, and they talk about the hospitality in the Kenyan people, the friendliness that we have. Let's keep that, because that is what keeps us top-notch as a tourist destination.
Yes, and of course we will be looking, I'm informed by the Royal Dutch visit, the 4-day busy day. And in my studio, we have Ambassador Boaz Mbaya. And just next to him, we have Sami Meli, who is a leadership and governance expert. Before we crossed over to Uhuru Gardens, and it's a good thing that we are honored to have you, having established the first mission in that country in 1985. And both the president and the king, they've talked about over 60 years of cooperation. How important, Ambassador, is it for us as a country to strengthen these ties?
Well, it is very important because the absolute minimum we can have is to diversify our development partners. And through efforts such as the cooperation with the European Union, with whom we have signed an economic partnership agreement, we are able to go into details of cooperation bilaterally, taking into account that overall framework of relations between the EU and Kenya under the East African Community. And it is, I think, important that we diversify our development partners so that we don't rely not necessarily on the former colonial masters or the United States as a superpower, but we have a diverse range of partners with whom we can cooperate and develop individual relations. And they also help us deal with some of the pressing economic issues that the country is facing. And not just now, but all the time, because we have had a very fruitful discussion with the Netherlands throughout the period I'm talking about. I remember even during the time I served in the Netherlands, I used to attend what we call cooperation development meetings, both here or in the Netherlands. And that looked at all areas of interest between the two countries where we could develop. And as Kenya, we sought to develop tourism, we sought to develop trade. Most of our flowers are sold at the auction in Amsterdam. And I think it's the largest conduit for Kenyan flowers internationally.
Horticulture, actually.
Yeah, horticulture internationally. So it is through those kind of engagements that we are able to maximize on relations between Kenya and the Netherlands, as well as other countries. Yeah, and I think it is very important that Kenyans understand that.
Meli, I'm looking at this cooperation and partnership, and we have seen a number of presidents even come to this country, kings and even prime ministers. And of course, the host country benefits the more. Actually, Kenyans, we are benefiting more than the Dutch are benefiting. On their end, what are some of the things that they are going to benefit with? Remember, they're still by the biggest chunk of horticulture from Kenya.
You know, we are lucky to have most of our organic produce coming from Kenya. The minimum use of fertilizer is actually being encouraged so that we get organically produced products going abroad. And therefore, for them, they will be lucky to get our naturally growing tea, for example, the naturally growing flowers where we rarely use fertilizer and other chemicals. You see, and looking at Netherlands, the way they are, mostly their produce is from horticulture. They don't have the natural land we enjoy as a country. They have also been able to manage their water resources. Remember, by the building of the dikes. Remember, the country lies below the sea level by some inches or some meters, and therefore they have been able to manage their water resources. Remember, the water around Netherlands is mostly saline. It's not the natural water we have around here, where we produce the products from Kenya, like the avocados, the consumable products like the corn. You see, there are farmers who plant corn just for export, and they go into those markets, especially those who are doing horticulture and minimizing the use of organic or artificial inputs. The Netherlands is going to benefit again by encouraging tourists from Kenya. You see, if you were to encourage farmers to go on tour fairs in Netherlands and see how things are done, perhaps we will have a few experts being sent, like the other time you saw the young men being sent to Israel to study. Perhaps we would have an agreement like that to send a few experts to go and train, then they come and implement. But I've always said we always get these top-notch things, then our implementation becomes the poorest because there is no follow-up. I have seen the members of parliament and the MCAs going to the Netherlands for fairs and tours to see, actually to study. And then within no time, 1 year election is here and he's gone home. He has not even implemented what he went to study. So I think the Foreign Affairs Ministry, together with the other ministries, should be able to send representatives who are sustainable. Actually, we say sustainable management of the resources, because the Dutch have brought us some resources that we are supposed to use. How sustainably can we use, like the renewable energy, the way they are able to tap into the renewable energy? Perhaps the technology on horticulture, how we'll tap into it, and using our natural soil, the natural water that we have that is not saline, we are able to practice agriculture that goes into the European market, and we are able to earn more in foreign exchange. Remember, even as we sell our products, we are not actually looking at the product. We are looking at the foreign exchange that the country earns, because we don't go into international market and sell in Kenyan shilling. We go there to sell in a dollar, and when the dollar is sold back, perhaps you go sell at a dollar which is, for example, let's say, of a lesser value when in the market. Then when you bring it back, you gain even more from that. So Kenya stands to benefit more. You see, even on security, the use of AI in artificial intelligence. Remember, the people of Netherlands have diversified into high-tech security solutions, and perhaps Kenya should be able to look into tapping into that, rather than remember, we have terrorists hiding in some places where you cannot just walk into them. We need to use technology to trace them. We have even cyber terrorists who incite Kenyans into violence. Those are cyber terrorists. And if somebody is able to incite a mass, you should be able to go for top-notch technological devices whereby you can get to them before they incite the public. So we are yet to see what is in the details of the agreements, but I'm sure there are quite a huge chunk of benefit that this country will get.
Yes, and Ambassador, I'll still throw the same question to you, having actually served in a number of European countries. How are the Netherlands bound to benefit from the agreements that have been signed?
Well, the fact that they are friends with Kenya is a major benefit in the first place, because international relations is a matter of how you relate to other state actors. Now, the establishment of diplomatic relations means you've reached a stage where you can maximize on that cooperation. So whether it is in terms of monetary terms that the Netherlands is benefiting from us is not important. Important thing is we are good friends and we can tap into each other's knowledge. Where it is possible to get finances, yes. Where it is not possible, can we share ideas and see to what extent we can develop together. So it is not a matter of quid pro quo in terms of dollars, no. It should be the wholesome, holistic approach in terms of what the two countries think they benefit from one another in terms of.
Yes. And let me touch on jobs, Ambassador, because looking at the jobs, when we have these agreements, most are in matters of agriculture, like we've seen. There's nothing in terms of jobs, trade, investment, renewable energy, tourism sector. When we hear about lots and lots of jobs, it's unskilled or semi-skilled, and it's in the Middle East. All these deals that we are seeing, and especially from Europe, we are not seeing jobs for our youth.
Yeah, because what jobs are we offering? Skilled jobs, what sort of skilled jobs are we offering? If it is IT, how many of people are IT savvy so that they can go and move into...
We have people who are learned, and even some of them have
I have no problem with that. I have no problem with that. I'm saying our economy still requires those people. Now, do we have enough to export to countries like the Netherlands? Because if they come for IT guys, they're going to take a lot of them. Germany will do a lot of them. So what is going to be left for Kenya? So we have to balance in terms of the needs. The country requires those people, as well as enabling those the young people who are savvy in terms of computer or IT, whatever, to go and get greener pastures wherever it is. So we shouldn't simply focus on jobs in terms of export. We should be looking at what is it we are doing that will anchor the technology in our economy and enable us to develop. Also, creating more jobs, training more people, and therefore able to export a lot of those people. I am circumspect about simply sending Kenyans outside there. We need to be sure what they are going to do. Is it beneficial to them, or is it a situation where they'll end up behaving like slaves? No, I would not want to see that happen. I've lived out of this country, and it can be very, very expensive for a Kenyan to go out there and get lost. It can be very, very expensive, both to the person as well as to the family and the country. So we need to be very careful what sort of jobs we are actually looking for in terms of export.
Yes, and let's look at resources. This deal worth, they didn't quote any figures, but this deal are worth billions of Kenyan shillings. How do we ensure that there's prudent utilization of public funds? We have seen even grants being misused. We've seen donor funds being misused. How can we ensure that? Because 60 years we have collaborated with the Netherlands. It's a very solid relationship.
I want to categorically say that the solution to all this is in one document called the Constitution of Kenya. If we are honest and true to the Constitution, if we follow each sentence, each word of the Constitution, we will be successful in even using the resources that we get. Otherwise, if we have ways in which people circumvent the law and come through the back door and steal the resources our president has gone to beg for, our ministers have gone to beg for. Remember, the Minister of Finance, the Cabinet Secretary for Finance, told us, even when you go to the IMF, you go and queue in a line. It's like it's a begging queue on a bench. So once you get these resources, how do you come and misuse the same resources you went to beg? So it calls for honesty among the Kenyans, honesty among the civil servants, because they are actually the custodians of our resources. And if we follow what the Constitution says, we follow the frameworks that perhaps are guiding the use of that, we follow into the letter of the contracts, especially, for example, the people who have been given the job to do, we will be able to develop this country. Otherwise, the shortcuts, you saw somebody preparing a skit or a drama about how resources are used. Yes. They come, then they are, you have to return a certain percentage. At the end of the day, you just end up coloring the road instead of making the tarmac.
Yes, Ambassador, maybe you can weigh in on that as well. And something else, how binding are these? Because I'm quite sure in your checkered career, you have seen deals like this was signed. Why I'm asking is because you do remember President was in the United States and signed some agreements with Joe Biden. Now we have a new administration. Are we going to have maybe something different, if at all, regime changes, either on that side or on this side? Can this are these things cast in stone?
I'm glad you gave that example of the United States.
Yes.
Because what Biden did has actually been thrown into the dustbin by Trump. He wants to see America in his own light. And you've seen the drastic action is taken in terms of dismantling certain establishments in the U.S. USAID, I think education, and many others. So those are avenues in which we were getting assistance from the United States, those avenues are being closed. So you are not going to get as much money as you probably would have hoped. And in the case of USAID, I think most of it is gone, like the medical facilities and so forth. The health facilities, not medical, health facilities, they are gone, almost gone. So how are we going to do it? We have to try and see what we can do about the situation ourselves. Deal with elephant in the room, which is corruption. And therefore, the little resources we have, we're able to channel it to development activities, which will benefit our people. If we don't do that, however much aid you get from any country, will be of no consequence at all. Yeah.
I'm informed that we are almost running out of time, but I will give you each at least a minute and two to reflect on the visit by the Dutch royals.
Yeah.
Okay. The visit by the Dutch royals is a good one for us. It's beneficial to us more than it's beneficial to Netherlands, and we should take the responsibility into putting into action what we have been given or what we have agreed to do. Remember, the European nations most of the time follow to the latter what we have agreed on. Ours is where we fail in following that, and especially when there are changes in the government. Perhaps if you were to see reshuffle perhaps coming very soon, and you find the new person coming, it doesn't follow up what was agreed on. We should have continuation of what was agreed on. Just like you see, theirs is a constitutional monarch. Therefore, he is being the head of state. He is able to follow up. Even if the prime minister or wherever the ministers are there changes, he's still there to ensure that this goes on because it is part of the agreement. So our nation, we should, actually the people of Kenya should be true to the constitution of Kenya. Let us be honest. Let us live with the little we have and accept that I am in this situation. It will change someday. Otherwise, if we keep grabbing left, right, and center, even the small resources we receive, our youth will remain unemployed. Remember, our schools are churning out unemployed youth. For example, this year after KCSE, we'll have around 900,000 coming. There are graduations going on that will be coming very soon. People being churned into the economy, which cannot absorb them because we are greedy.
All right. Ambassador, having served in those countries, I see Netherlands, Germany, Britain, France, and also Africa, you've been in Djibouti. How can we strengthen our foreign policy? The reason I'm asking is because we've seen what has happened in Sudan, we've seen what has happened in DRC. Just to mention a few, how can we strengthen our foreign policy?
Well, thank you very much. That's a very important question for me because I was in a position to administer our foreign service.
Yes.
So I know exactly what it means to stick to a good foreign policy. What we need to do to strengthen our foreign policy is to stick to the framework of our foreign policy. And the framework has a lot of things in it. One, how do you deal with country-specific matters? If you don't know that, you're in trouble. How do we deal with regional blocks? If you don't know that, you're in trouble. How do we deal with the superpowers and so forth? We were able to deal with all those things in the 70s to get UNEP and Habitat here. And we have been able to sustain both institutions in this place because we were very faithful to the framework. The foreign policy is already set. What we are trying to do is trying to administer it under certain different circumstances. It is not about an administration. It's about the country itself. So we have to be very faithful to it. And I hope it is possible we can do that.
All right. Thank you so much. That has been Ambassador Boaz Mbaya, who has worked in Netherlands, actually was the first secretary to put up the embassy there in Netherlands in 1985. And just next to him, we have our usual good friend, Sami Meli, governance expert. Thank you indeed so much for watching. I'm now giving the baton to the Swahili desk. Kurunzi Mashinani and Tamini is coming up next.